Hi, this is Julie with a quick note before we begin. This summer, the organization Moms First will release a groundbreaking documentary about American motherhood with screenings across the country. I signed up to co-host a screening here in the San Francisco Bay Area alongside Heather Anderson from the Mamahood and with this episode's guest, an award-winning filmmaker herself, Tricia Valencia. I'll also be recording a podcast conversation with Moms First founder Reshma Sajani, releasing the episode ahead of the screening. Stay tuned for all of these good things and follow the link in the show notes to sign up for the details. Now, onto the show.
But what I can do is love them with this fierceness that keeps them rooted in the belief and the understanding that they are worth loving. So I'm trying to pass that same concept on to my babies so that they understand that they have value, they are lovable, they are worth loving, so they can move into the world with that strength and that understanding of self.
Hello, and welcome to the special Mother's Day episode with my friend Tricia Valencia, recorded live in the unmuted studio at PowerHouse, the creative event space Tricia co-founded in San Jose. Tricia and I first came into each other's lives while collaborating on the Autism Storytelling Project. And then she said yes to spending a full day together for a new offering I was piloting called Spark Your Epic Life in a Day. On a Milestone Hike, during lunch, and then coaching in my garden afterwards, Tricia reflected on what she was grieving in the aftermath of COVID, made commitments to herself that could pave a way forward, and named out loud big dreams to become a speaker and find a creative room of her own to pursue her artistic expression. Her bio today blends the powerful pieces of her past with the dreams she's now realized. She is an Emmy-nominated director, producer, and motivational speaker whose documentary films have won multiple awards and screened at film festivals and on public television nationally. She holds an MFA in cinema from San Francisco State and a BA in social sciences from UC Berkeley, and has taught filmmaking at Santa Clara University, UC Santa Cruz, San Francisco State, and high schools. She co-founded PowerHouse, a podcast and media production studio and event space for women plus creatives in San Jose. And she's the 2026 Creative Ambassador for the City of San Jose, currently producing a citywide multimedia project called I Am, We Are, Our Stories Connect Us. As a loving daughter and the mother of two children who came to her through adoption, she has lived through some of the hardest chapters that mothering and caregiving can bring. The day we recorded, Tricia almost canceled. She was carrying a profound anticipatory grief because her mother, Barbara, who had dementia, was in hospice. But we decided together to show up anyway and be with whatever came into the room. Her mom has since passed away, and in a voice note she sent me recently, Tricia said of our coming together that day that it was a testimony to all the things that we have on our hearts and on our minds as mamas. We're being pulled by our babies and our families and our mothers, and yet we show up and we stay in conversation with each other. If this podcast is a testimony to staying in it, then I am proud of us. I am proud of us too. When we recorded the conversation, I'd been going through some hard things in my own parenting journey that asked the same thing of me. And what Tricia shared in this conversation gave me language and perspectives I needed that day. Radical acceptance, slow hope, and fierce love. That last one she traces all the way back to her mom, and it's woven through everything she does. For more about what makes Tricia's storytelling so unique and powerful, I'm honored to introduce April Adams-Pertwee with this episode's dedication. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest.
Hi, I'm April Adams-Pertwee. I'm an author, speaker, podcaster, CEO of Lightbeamers, but most importantly, I'm a storyteller. In fact, that's what my company focuses on, is story. We help women like you learn to tell your story to create a positive impact in the world. Which brings me to you today, with the great privilege of introducing my friend and today's guest to the Mother's Quest podcast. Tricia Valencia is also a storyteller, a woman after my own heart who loves to tell stories through her filmmaking, crafting, community building, and advocacy work. I first met Tricia in an online speakers group, and I immediately felt a kinship to her as we both have video producing and film backgrounds. Eventually, Tricia became a client of mine when she wanted some help taking her keynote speaking to the next level. More specifically, she wanted help telling her mothering story. You'll hear more about Tricia's challenges as a mother in today's episode, but what is so special about Tricia is her willingness to tell the story while she's still in it. As you'll hear, she's currently walking through immense grief following the loss of her own mother. She's a storyteller, one who deeply understands the value of sharing, even when it's hard, complicated, and yes, even tear-stained. Lean into this one, friends, because it's rare when people are willing to show up, even when they don't feel like it. And that's where you'll meet Tricia today.
Tricia, welcome to the Mother's Quest podcast, which I have the joy of recording live in person with you in your PowerHouse unmuted studio.
I'm so glad you're here. I've been dying for you to see the space.
It's so incredible to be here. So I'm sure we'll get into this in various points, but I feel like we have to name that you and I came into each other's lives a few years ago, and there was a summer day where I had this desire to do an in-person Spark Your Epic Life in a Day, and you said yes, which I remember also being so overjoyed about. And there were so many things about that day that were special, but a lot that you were saying out loud and really wanting to manifest. And the fact that we are now here a few years later in the space that represents so much of what you were seeking and getting to experience the benefits of what you've created together, it's magic.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. I mean, there's a lot to say, and there are so many layers to that day that we spent together. But one piece in specific was that I really was looking for a room of my own, right? In the Virginia Woolf sense of it, I needed a room of my own to do my own creative work, to have space from my family, to have space for myself. And I hadn't even moved into this space, which has now grown to be PowerHouse, which is a creative workspace for women, and Unmuted Studio, where we're sitting recording this interview. So it's like my creativity times 10,000 in the space. And it's really good to remember, because it's only been 2 years, but it's also been 2 years, right? So I forget in the day-to-day sort of slog of running this business and doing all my creative work, how far I've come. And I feel like that's a big part of this conversation today for me is you really encouraged me to name a lot of the grief and frankly, a lot of the anger that I was feeling about my mothering journey. And I set a bunch of intentions about ways that I wanted to sort of leave that chapter behind and move into a new one explicitly with the work that I did with you. And I think if I went back and looked at it, I would be like, check, 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 which is pretty amazing.
You did all those things.
I did all those things because you gave me a structure to name and know, and then a path to follow for doing the things that were going to help me heal. I'm really grateful for that.
My heart is so full because I'll also have to say, over the years, watching the journey unfold and seeing you share what I call these epic snapshot moments on your social media. And every single time I see anything that you share, I just feel not only a sense of fulfillment for being whatever part I was in your journey, but also so inspired. It reminds me of what's possible in terms of my own dreams and the things I haven't yet completely spoken or committed to, that I might also be able to make all those things happen.
Yeah. I think it's really important to have friends and folks in our lives that we say those things out loud to, right? I think that's part of bringing them to life and bringing them to light. It's like if you're scared and you say it out loud, but a friend heard you say it, dang it, you got to make it happen now. And I feel like that's what a lot of our relationship has been, is we've both been kind of checking in and encouraging each other. And I love it when you text me and you're like, hey, I saw this photo on Facebook that made me realize, look how far you've come. Those kind of check-in moments. The other thing I wanted to say just before we get too far into spirit of frankness and clarity is we're here today to talk about my mothering journey. You know this, the listeners won't know this, but my mom is in hospice care and she's dying. So this conversation today is extra layered for me. It's extra loaded. It's filled with a lot of anticipatory grief, or ambiguous grief, as I've grown to call it, because I'm grieving the loss of my mom, who also has dementia. And so when I reflect on my own mothering and what I learned from her and what parts of her come through me and parenting of my own kids, like, I'm very tender today. And I almost canceled on you. And we decided together that we'd rather come together and just tell the truth and maybe cry and be authentic. And that might be the story that we need to tell today. But I just want to name that up front. There will be tears.
That feels like par for the course. And
right? For us anyway.
Many people listening may remember that this is not my first time to PowerHouse. The first time I came was with Ryan, where we recorded an episode together after we did a Milestone Hike on his 20th birthday. And that episode, produced by PowerHouse, ended up becoming award-winning, Signal Award-winning, which was also such an amazing experience. But there were a lot of tears.
There were.
So, we're both primed for it.
Yeah.
And we know it's just part of our whole human experience.
Yeah.
I am so sad about what you're going through with your mom. And I lost my dad about 4 years ago now. It feels unbelievable. But I know that it comes in waves.
It does.
And that it can be hard to talk through it. So, typically I would ask that question about the impact that your mother's had on your journey. And we've decided together that that may get woven through the conversation, or we may circle back to it at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. She's on my mind and she's on my heart. And she absolutely imbues all the parts of who I am. But I know that if I start down that path in this conversation, I'm not sure if I'll be able to continue. So thank you for your graciousness and allowing that to just sort of come through as it comes through.
Of course. So the other question I do often ask my guests at the beginning, before we dive into the epic guideposts, is what you feel like you've been most on a quest for in your life.
Oh, wow. In my whole life, it's like I'm a knight in shining armor. I love quests. I think, to try to encapsulate my quest, I have a long career as a filmmaker, as a documentary filmmaker, a long career as an educator. I've taught filmmaking and visual storytelling for a couple of decades. I've done a lot of activism work as a mom and as an advocate for my kid with multiple disabilities. And like, when you think about like, how do you piece apart and figure out sort of what are the threads of all of that? I think that probably the biggest quest for me has been amplifying people's voices for good, right? Like figuring out in all those different contexts, like, how can I bring my talents and abilities, which are, I'm good at storytelling, I'm good at connecting with people, I think I'm a good listener, really figuring out sort of what are those nuggets of humanity that shine through in each of those stories. And also with folks who need stuff, they need help, they may need guidance, they need space, they need folks to listen to what they have to say. So I sort of see my beacon is that I'm always trying to figure out, how can I amplify marginalized is a word that some people might say, underrepresented voices. For me, it's just my people, right? It's women, it's people of color, it's youth. It's these folks that are so deep in my journey and in my heart. And I'm always trying to figure out like, okay, how can I help you say what you need to say with expressiveness, with authenticity, with dignity, with power? So yeah, I feel like my biggest life's quest is to make sure that the folks who come into contact with me in my professional life, in my personal life, they have a chance to speak and tell their truth and share their stories.
I love hearing you name all of this so clearly, because I've been able to experience all of that. And I think we'll get to acknowledgments at the end as well. But there's this unique alchemy of you that is like all of these aspects of who you are and how you show up that are so meaningful, which you named beautifully. But then you're also like an incredibly skilled person with the ability
Tell me more.
to do a lot of things. Like that combination of like the heart is that like heart and hands when people say that?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
that you can hold both of those, I think is a unique gift.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, honestly, storytelling has always existed, right? It's how people have connected. It's how they've passed on oral histories. It's the way we sit around the dinner table with our families and laugh and talk and remember what happened in the past. And it's the way we make fun of each other and tease each other, people that we love. Like, honestly, just storytelling is the central kernel for me about the way that we connect. And I'm rowdy and I'm an extrovert and I love to laugh and to listen. And I just love to be present for people kind of unfolding who they are and what they've been through. So that just comes super duper naturally to me. I also have this really strong streak of social justice. My dad was a social worker with abused kids, and he had been really severely abused himself when he was a child. And so he did this idea where he spent many years in therapy and focusing on helping abused kids as his career. And what I saw right in front of me was he rewrote his own story. He showed me that you can totally pivot, you can totally change from what has happened before and create a totally new reality. And that's what he did in his parenting of me and in the way that he shaped our family and taught me how to be a parent. And he brought a really strong thread of social justice, passion for social justice from his career forward into what I valued and what I cared about. And so for me as a storyteller, that became the way that I framed everything. How do I amplify marginalized voices? How do I shine light on these social issues? It became my quest to do that because I was influenced by the way he saw the world.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't heard as much about your dad.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm like, I told you I feel too sensitive and vulnerable to talk about my mom, and then I'm ending up talking about my dad.
And it's a reminder that you don't need to be a biological woman to mother.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of the concept that I've been thinking about in my work now, especially when I think about my teaching. I learned about this frame of other mothering from the African American community, where it's all of the kin, all of the aunties, all of the other people in your life who can play this really deep, rich parenting role for you. And that is exactly what I realized I've been doing with my students all these years. And during those really hard teen years when my own kids were less interested in being mothered by me, being guided by me, hearing what I had to say, I got to go into classrooms and do that with other teenagers. I wasn't their mom, so they were able and willing to sort of accept my gifts and what I wanted to share with them. And when I found that word of other mothering, I was like, oh, like
I love that.
I love it so much.
Well, that is a good segue to getting into talking about living an epic life. You've probably heard me share this with you before, but epic has two meanings. One is metaphorical, this idea that we are stepping into being the author of our own story and in our own hero or heroine's journey. And then the other is it's an acronym mnemonic for the guideposts that I think help us to live that life while we're raising our kids. And I'm joking with you that I'm learning more and more that the raising of the kids never really ends. So this is really the epic guideposts in our whole life. And I want to start with the first one, E, which stands for engaging mindfully with our children, to hear what you've learned on your motherhood journey about how to do that. And I've also told you that I'm coming out of a particularly challenging mothering season and how much I've been feeling like I need to talk to Tricia. I need to learn your wisdom about how to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to hearing your insights on this guidepost.
Yeah. So Tricia at the beginning of the journey would have been like, I got this, right? I have really good instincts around mothering and love is enough. Both my kids joined our family through adoption. And I understood that would come with complications and that there would be adoption trauma, especially in their teen years, that we were going to need to work on and process. So I felt like I had a really mindful approach to how to be the best mom I could be. I read a zillion books. I joined a support group for adoptive moms, a play group that my kids were in. I also think that I was aware even then that I didn't have an expectation that they were going to be exactly like me. And that's kind of liberating in some ways. I wasn't like, oh, they will be XYZ because I am XYZ. I was more like, oh, I'm going to get to see who they are. They're going to show me who they are as I raise them. So I actually think that funny little adoption piece opened up my heart maybe a little bit and my mind a little bit to like, I'm on a journey and I'm going to figure this out as we go and I'm going to be surprised along the way. That was in the early years, right? Very quickly, there came to be surprises I hadn't anticipated. My daughter was diagnosed with dyslexia when she was 7. And all of a sudden school, which was something I had absolutely loved and couldn't wait for my kids to participate in, was like a hellscape for her. Super hard, very painful. Her self-esteem plummeted. She had a great deal of difficulty learning how to read. So all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay. I thought my mothering journey was going to look like this, and I was going to volunteer at the school and be involved in these ways, and my kids were going to shine and be super bright and love school. And that just wasn't what was happening with her. So I very quickly had to learn like how to do it differently. And I think that was just one example really early on where I had to become an advocate. I had to learn about her disability. I had to start, frankly, fighting the schools to get her what she needed. But I will say, like, a beautiful little silver lining of that is she couldn't read independently really well into her teens. And I remember like laying in bed with her when she was like 11 and 12 and reading Harry Potter out loud to her or reading the Hunger Games books. And even then I had this little awareness of like, I'm so lucky because other kids are reading independently and they don't need their parents for this. And I still get to have this connection with her. And we shared the same connection over like podcasts because we would drive 2 mornings a week up to Palo Alto for her to do reading remediation therapy before school. And we would listen to these stories, these podcasts together. So it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And it was pretty hard and very hard on her. But there were these moments of connection that came out of it. There were things that I got because of it, like that elongated connection and intimacy with her. And that just kind of goes on and repeats that pattern of like, I thought it was going to be one thing and then it was something else entirely, right? And that was particularly stark during the pandemic when my kids were 16 and 12 when the pandemic started. And I don't like to speak in like really dramatic black and white terms, but that one felt pretty dramatically bad, right? My daughter was a roller derby skater at like the top level and that all shut down. My son was a musical theater kid and that all shut down. And I was a teacher. I was teaching filmmaking at Santa Clara University. Everything shut down and went online. So there were several parts of our lives that just like whoop, completely closed and really left us off kilter. And that was a really hard period to navigate and to figure out like, okay, how do I parent in this new era? My kids were already going to be struggling with identity and, individuation as adolescents, as adopted teens. I knew that from all the books I'd read and all the support groups I'd been in and all the parts.
You were prepared.
I was ready. Yeah. I had a handle on it. And then for my kid who was disabled, like the minute school went online, I was like, oh, we're cooked. This is not going to work for her. She's a hands-on learner. She's an artist. She was at a tiny art school where she could do photography and sculpture and weave that into the curriculum. So that was another time when we just had to figure out like, oh, okay, how are we going to do this? And it got pretty bad all around. My daughter ran away from home. She is mentally ill, and that really manifested strongly during those teen years. And then I had this sibling who's his whole life been the sibling to a kid with disabilities and therefore, in his opinion, not gotten nearly enough attention, which was something that he made really, really clear to me at that time. And that was super painful and hard for me to hear because like I had an understanding of the childhood I'd given them. And, side note, the sacrifices I'd made and the ways that my career was impacted by choosing to be such a full-time hands-on mom with them. So I had my own story of how their childhoods had gone. And they both started to say really loud and clear to me, like, we have our own opinions about that. And we have our own understanding and perspective. And that was really hard for me to hear. And I had to learn how to hear it, right? So my vision of what was and their vision of what was didn't match up. And I had to figure out how to stay present for them, how to listen. And I'll say out loud for my own part, I did not do that well for a good chunk of time. There was a real hard period in there when I feel like I was really depressed. I had a lot of why me, why our family, why us. Simultaneously, I mentioned my mom at the beginning of this interview. Her dementia began sort of at the onset of the pandemic. So all throughout that time, when I was really starting to struggle and facing parenting struggles I'd never faced before, she was fading in her ability to be present for me. She'd always been my counselor, my guide, really loved my kids, was super involved, and I couldn't count on her. As time went on pretty quickly, I couldn't really count on her to hold the complexity of what we were going through. So I think there was a period there that I'm not very proud of where I really, really struggled and had a hard time seeing what they needed and giving them what they needed. But like I did a couple things. I counted on my community to show up for me, this community that I'd built over all these years, right? The schools that we chose, the parents that we were friends with, our Chavara, our Jewish friendship group, who were like second parents, aunts and uncles to my kids. Those folks kept showing up when they saw how hard things were for my kids and how hard they were for me, literally showing up and taking me on walks, staying connected with me, coming over and doing dishes if that's what needed to happen on some of my hardest days. So they were there. And then I love to research and figure stuff out. I always think I can figure this out, right? So I turned to Megan Leahy, who was a parenting columnist for the Washington Post. I was a total fangirl of her column, and she had a book called Parenting Outside the Lines. And it was all about adaptability, vulnerability. And her bottom line message was you have to stay connected no matter what. And I was like, I can try to do that, right? And she helped me understand about bids for connection, making sure that you keep offering and, ask your kid to go to the movies as an example. The 10th time, no. The 20th time, no. The 30th, maybe the 31st time, they'll say, okay. And so I had a kind of framework for stay in it, keep trying to stay connected to them. And then I personally started doing some support groups to try to help navigate my daughter's mental illness and got language that I now have totally integrated that I didn't have then about radical acceptance, where I had just exhausted myself being so angry and so it's so unfair and I'm so hurt and I've tried so hard and it's not working out and I'm really scared for my kid. I was just a bundle of really intense, hard emotion. And radical acceptance is this idea of it is what it is. Stop pushing so hard against the thing. It doesn't mean you have to say the thing is okay, right? It doesn't mean you have to be like, oh, well, I guess it just is. It's just sort of right now, this is the circumstance. And I realized once I knew how to do that or practiced how to do that, it created space for me to breathe a little bit, to back off a little bit, to allow other emotions besides this just intense anger and fear and why me-ness to sort of dissipate. And then I could have a little more grace and a little more space for myself. And then lo and behold, if you give people a little bit of space, meaning our children, and they do eventually tiptoe back a couple steps towards me, right? Again, once I wasn't this just intense, freaked out, angry ball. And then companion to that, and this will be probably the biggest other piece of learning from that phase in their lives and how I had to adapt is I understood this concept of slow hope, which comes from the climate change movement, believing that small incremental change matters. So in the relationship with my kids, for me, it was acknowledging small incremental change, teeny tiny positive steps forward, taking the long view and really believing, right? I had been such an optimist before and thought that love would cure everything and we'd be okay. Didn't believe that anymore, but I could very sort of clearly recognize when things were a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And my friends helped me do that, right? This community of other moms really that were on the journey with me and had known my kids the whole way through and had seen the worst of it. And when I would just sort of offhandedly be like, oh, we went out and got some food the other day, blah, blah, blah. And they'd be like, wait, what? You did that.
Don't go right up.
You were one of my friends that was really good at that. You would text me and say hey, I noticed you had this moment of connection. That's so great. How far you've come. And that was really helpful to me. And it helps me maintain slow hope, right? It's going to be okay. It's just going to take a really long time. And I have the responsibility of being grateful and recognizing the small incremental change along the way. And that keeps me on course, right?
I love this concept of slow hope. I'm going to hold on to that. And I always say this at one point in every interview. I will definitely come back to this whole guidepost of yours many times because going through some things in my parenting journey going through some things in my parenting journey that I think require the radical acceptance and the slow hope in big ways.
Yeah. And they really, really need us to do that, especially as they're getting older, right? We can't love it away. We can't solve it. And boy, do I want to solve all of it, right? I mean, I am a problem solver. I pride myself on my tenacity. I can fix anything. And they're like, stop trying to fix it.
Yeah. I got in the car the other day with Ryan. We had gone to a doctor visit of his together. And he said, I really think I want you to be less involved in my life. And on the one hand, I should be cheering.
Yeah.
Because you want them to step into more independence and claim that their own agency. But then there are also all these other emotions because it's so complex.
Yeah. Well, as the mom of a kid with a pretty severe disability, I've heard those declarations too. And I'm like, okay.
And then we get the phone call when things are really hard or things start to fall apart.
Right. And I'm ready. Like, trust me, I'm good in an emergency crisis phone call situation. But it's hard because I want to believe in her. I want to believe that she can navigate. I think I've given her tools and scaffolding and all the things. And then she still needs to come back to me a lot. Right. So you're right. It's like that funny balance of like, I hear you. And in the back of my head, I'm like, and I'll be here for you.
Yeah. And I think, how do we not be resentful, welcome them back when they need support, but also not rush in to completely hold everything again?
Yeah. The not being resentful is huge because you have sacrificed a lot, as have I. You have to parent high needs kids, I mean, I think probably just to mother in general, that's the case. Talk to almost any mom about like what she gave up or what might have gone differently if she didn't have kids. But it's a little hard sometimes because it's like, hi, I'm a human being. I'm doing a lot to make sure that you're safe and cared for and trying to keep you on the path. And I definitely have petty moments where I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll admit it.
I might be sorry I'm revealing these things later. So my younger one, he's had a lot of physical issues. He had 3 years of this rare knee disorder and 2 knee surgeries. But in the last 6 months or so, he's done things that are just not smart things and really hurt himself again. Just broke his wrist. Today, he had to go in for a broken toe because he was pushing the door with his foot in a way that was not so smart. Kind of classic ADHD boy thing, seeking some stimulation. And I was like, I think I'm done. I'm like full up on doctor's visits. I cannot go back to the doctor for another x-ray right now. And so Ryan was home and I sent Ryan along. I did say this out loud in front of Jacob. And he was like, okay, that's kind of mean of you to say that, but also fair.
I love that.
And he actually didn't say it. That was mean. He has more colorful language. But I do think also just being real with our kids, letting them know that we're humans and them sharing the impact of their decisions and what it means to be caregiving.
Yes. Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah. I've shared some artwork that I've made with my kids. I've shared some audio stories that I've made with my kids, which is scary and vulnerable making because sometimes it really does get into the sort of intense complexities of how I'm feeling and it's not pretty always. And I've made decisions to like share that piece with them because I really want to try to help them see things from my perspective. And as they grow up, that works better, right? But like, I love that that was Jacob's response. Fair.
Well, let's move on to the next guidepost. P,
How are things?
which stands for passionate and purposeful impact. And this is about the difference you're making in the world beyond your family.
Mm-hmm.
You shared in the beginning a little bit of the big themes through your life of organizer, activist, storyteller. What are the ways that you're making an impact in this current chapter of your life?
So this space that we're sitting in, this is Unmuted Studio inside of PowerHouse. And I feel like I say a lot about my work in the community that I'm in my third act, right? I like to think of like it's a play. And I really feel like I'm in this final chapter, this third act of my career. And I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing is going to leave a legacy and reach as many people as possible. And I used to do that by making films and, having them go on television or in movie theaters and helping people sort of see another perspective through these films and doing community-based screenings and talking about the content in them. Like that was good and that was important work. And now I think I am with this space with PowerHouse. It's this really concentrated way for me to create a room of one's own. For me, I have gotten a chance to do a lot more creative work here, making work for myself that isn't necessarily for distribution or publication, having a space, a desk where I can come and sit and write or collage or work on photographs or, any manner of creative work, which was something you and I talked about me reclaiming as I was kind of coming through the really dark days post-pandemic. I recognized like I need to make some art for me. So that started in the founding of this space was somewhat selfishly, I guess, creating a space for myself. And then once I was here, we realized, oh, this is a really lovely concept of creating space for women who are creatives that probably are also mothers, daughters, have all these other obligations and parts of their lives that are pulling on them. And when they come here, they can really focus on that sort of creative generation. So we started PowerHouse, and it's been wonderful. I think it is making a difference. We have a lot of folks coming through who are co-working here. People are making podcasts here. We're holding all kinds of professional development workshops where people are, I do a lot of writing workshops, helping people rock their bio and present themselves on websites and on their LinkedIn. A lot of art workshops, because I really, through all of this, like a big shining beacon for me is using art as a tool for mental health. I recognize that's what I've been doing with my students always, right? Is helping them express themselves and talk about their identity and sexuality and family histories and raise up these narratives that we don't normally get to hear, like how deeply healing that is. So applying that to myself, applying that to people who enter this space, really giving people a chance to reflect and think and create. This is a time when I feel like personal healing through art, as an example, workshops that I run or projects that I'm involved in, I think it's really important that we be having those conversations, because if we see one another and really understand one another, I think that leads to some collective healing that we need very intensely right now in our communities and in our nation. So for me, it's quite grandiose. I really think like if we gather people together to lift up their voices, to make art, to be together, to connect, to share our stories, people who are different than us, people who are similar to us, like that really truly makes a difference in opening up our hearts and building empathy and helping us care about other people's issues. So this has become the place where that's going down. And I'm so happy. I love it so much. It's been so good for me personally, professionally, and it's rippling out. We're only in our first year of the space. My partner Farron and I had it as a small co-working space for just the two of us in year one. And in year two, we opened it up to the public. And we've got folks who are coming through and making all kinds of projects and stuff now. So yeah, this feels really good to me. And it's been companion with the teaching, which I really hope I will always, always, always get to do, because youth are so ready for this work, right? They're so ready to make work. And I don't think adults listen to youth nearly enough. And so I like to help them make these really smart, really polished pieces where they can make it for themselves, for their peers. But I also hope that the teachers, administrators, parents, folks who really tune in and listen to what they have to say, that changes the way everything goes for the next generation, right? So that's the work that I'm dedicating myself to now. It's always interlaced with my family, though. Like to say like, oh, it's just what you do separate. It's never separate, right? Like my kids are involved here. My daughter interns here and comes down and does photography here and takes care of our plants. And my son helped staple all the records to the foyer ceiling and, helped us when we were first opening up. And we're a space in the community that they live in. I had this beautiful moment with my son recently where he told me he thought I was a visionary because of what we're doing here at PowerHouse.
That is incredible. When your children truly see you and take the time to acknowledge and reflect it back.
Yeah, it was
so powerful.
It was a moment, especially after everything that we've been through and all the challenges and struggle and pain in our family. It was a really lovely moment of feeling seen by him.
And you are a visionary and you're making it happen. You had a vision and you're making it real.
Yeah, I mean, I sat down and after we worked together and I said I needed a room of my own. So we built a house of our own.
You got a little bit more than you bargained.
We were big.
Well, this is actually a good bridge to the next guidepost, which stands for investing in yourself. And this guidepost is about self-care and, making space for the things that bring you joy. Mm-hmm. But it's also sometimes about like literally investing in yourself, time and money, investing in dreams, whether you know if you're going to be able to make it happen or not. So this has been a big leap for you to invest in PowerHouse.
Yeah.
So what did it take inside yourself to make this investment?
Yeah. So I'm continuing to reference the work that you and I did together when we did Milestone Hike, because it was the first time in a long time that I'd really sat down and had a container for thinking about what I wanted, thinking about what I needed and how I wanted to move forward, what I needed to leave behind and what I wanted to move toward. And I remember that day, one of the things that I wrote down that I really wanted for myself was a space, literally a space to explore my creativity, a space that was for me. That was a reaction for me to coming out of the pandemic, being sheltered in place. I am probably the world's biggest extrovert. And that was incredibly, like, my husband is an introvert, and I would look at him at different points and be like, you have no idea how hard this is for me. Like, the loneliness is bone deep to not get to be around people and have that energy and that synergy. So I was really clear that I wanted to create a space for myself outside of my home. And that's a major impetus for everything that has happened here. And that is me honoring who I am, knowing what I need, and building it, right? And I feel like that's kind of been a through line in a lot of the parts of my life, my mothering journey. It's like, oh, I need a support group for other moms of kids with dyslexia. Well, then I'm going to build it. There are a bunch of different examples throughout my life where it was like, I need this very specific thing that is unique to my circumstance. I'm going to build it. Or in the case of like NAMI, oh, I need a support group for parents of mentally ill children. I'm going to join and I'm going to be all in. For me, the next steps of that was I ended up speaking at NAMI California conferences and talking about my mothering journey and helping other parents sort of see how I've navigated the challenges and how I've built community within that, network. So it's always like, what's the thing I need? How can I build it? Or if it already exists, how can I join it and amplify its power? Right? So that's what this space was for me. It's a leap and it's a vulnerability for me because it involves money, which is someone who's been an artist and an educator and a nonprofit worker my whole life. Money's hard for me. I get nervous and scared when it's about, will there be enough? Is it going to be okay? But being in the space and being around other women who are also being brave and taking leaps. And I'm sitting here like pumping them up around like, increase that budget and you're worth more than that. And you look at all this amazing accomplishments you've done and you should be paid abundantly. I stopped saying paid fairly and started saying paid abundantly. It's on a little Post-it on my computer in my office. And if I can say that to them, I need to be saying that to myself. That feels a little bit like, self-care talk, but it works. Like, honestly, if I would say something to a friend, and that for me also helps me build empathy, it helps me build grace toward myself. Like, why am I so kind and caring toward my friends who are going through it? And I tell myself I need to get over it and get back up and be strong all the time. I wouldn't say that to you. I don't say that to you, right? I don't say that to my friends who are struggling. So there's something about creating a space where I'm around other people, other women who are being brave and taking leaps and following their dreams. And I'm pumping them up. And then very naturally, they're also pumping me up and encouraging me to be brave. Because in my third act, I am not interested in, being subjugated to somebody else's vision. I'm a visionary. I want to create the thing that I want, that I need, because I know a lot of other folks in the community need it too. So that gives me a lot of strength to keep going, I think. And I'm cared for because I'm in community and I'm around people that, are striving and trying to make the world a better place. And I'm doing my part. I can come here every day and feel like I'm doing my part in that mission.
So good. And you're already beginning to talk about some of your wisdom in the last Guidepost C, which is about connecting to a strong support network and realizing that you don't have to be on this journey alone. One of the things I think about when I think of you is not only how connected you are to different communities, but how much those communities bring you joy. So in so many ways, the I and the C for you are so interconnected. I'd love to hear, how do you make space and seek so much connection with others around these things that bring you joy? Because it seems to me like, as a human being, that is you are like goals for me. Could I ever figure out how many things out there bring me joy and then find the community and the opportunities to fill up my cup in the way that I see you do that?
Find the community or build it.
Or build it, which you were just talking.
I mean, I think that's part of it. It's like, I'm pretty invested in making sure that I'm surrounded by people that care about what I care about, that like to do what I like to do. Yeah, I am really good at that. And I have to say, when I was at my worst in my depressive episode, I was so disconnected from joy. And I was able to figure that out through working with our parent coach, just, kind of creeping back into the world and trying to reflect and figure out what was going on. I do remember at one point, I've always been an athlete. I've played sports my whole life. Even now in my mid-50s, I'm on a travel softball team. I play softball. I played roller derby for several years. So sports has been a natural community for me. I mean, I love to compete. I'm a very competitive person, but it's really about those friendships and that support network and showing up and doing something that I really, really love, using my body. That generates so much joy for me to just be in my body playing sports. And during the pandemic, of course, all that disappeared. I was on a basketball team at the time the pandemic started. And the coach said to me, you need to start playing sports again. It was like, she framed it like a homework assignment. And I'm a good girl who likes to get good grades. So I was like, oh, and it was still hard. Like we were still masked, the whole thing. But I found a pickup basketball league that was meeting again, and we could come in our masks and I could begin playing and literally embodying the movement that brings me joy, right? Like getting out there, bumping into people, laughing, smiling, goofing off, talking, like physical expression of that joy creation. So I'm already a part of some built-in communities. And again, I go all in, right? Like I'm going to fully show up. I'm going to join the travel team, not just the regular team. I'm going to do all the parts that are going to make it be as rich as possible. And fundamentally, all that is getting super connected to my teammates, people that I care about, that I'm interested in, and opening myself up, telling the truth about who I am and what my journey's been. Like all of it is just a container for connection and storytelling while doing an activity that I super duper duper like. Crafting is similar for me. I started a group called the Crafty Chicas because I'm DIY. I love it. I collage, I make stuff, For example, I brought one to show you, quilted hearts, where we sew these hearts and then we leave them out in the community for people to find. It's part of a project called I Found a Quilted Heart. And that's literally just about spreading joy. There's nothing else except like, I want to make somebody happy when they randomly stumble across this thing. But I sit around a big old table with a bunch of women friends while we make these. It's like the idea of women in sewing circles, like that's what women did to connect over all the years, right? While they were being productive and making things that were beautiful. So I don't know. I know that I just really make it a priority. I know that I am a joy seeker, right? It's my personality type. I'm an Enneagram 7. And I already mentioned I'm an extrovert. Like part of what makes me hum is being around my people and being connected. So I continue to seek it out in all these different parts of my life. And it keeps me really happy and really connected. It also keeps me really tuned into the realities of life. I'm not lonely and isolated when I'm connected in those ways. So I know that my story is similar to other people's stories. I can connect to their joy, their pain, the depth of being with a mother who's dying in hospice care. Someone else is going through that. Losing my mom to dementia. I have friends who are also on that path. Having kids that are really struggling and in a lot of pain. I've got several women in my life who are walking journeys the same or similar to my own. So for me, it's a direct line to my own happiness and joy to know that I'm not alone.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the end of this conversation, and there's an opportunity for you to give me and anyone else who's listening who wants to say yes, a challenge or an invitation that might help us more fully live our epic lives. Hopefully we'll be as good of a student as you are.
All right. Okay, get ready, Julie. Write this down. This is a homework assignment.
All right. I have to turn my page. I'm ready. What would you invite us to do based on all of these lessons and all this wisdom that you've been sharing throughout the conversation?
So my sort of joy-infused version, I think, of mindfulness, you know me well enough to know it's not about being quiet and sitting in quiet reflection. I'm a person of action. I'm a person who needs to be in the world and connected to others. But I think the element of mindfulness that I try to bring to my life and that I think I would like other people to at least create space for is that exact idea of where can you cultivate joy? So being on a quest to cultivate joy in your own life, and that could look very different for you than it does for me, but keeping an eye for what are these moments when I recognize that I feel content, I feel connected, I feel could be bliss, it could be open and loose. It could be full of grace, however you define it, however you experience that sort of in your body and in your mind. Just recognizing when that happens, literally that, and saying, I am experiencing a moment of joy. So once you recognize it and you start to see like where are the places that happens, who are the people you're with when that happens, what activities are you doing when joy comes to the foreground for you? Once you see that, then you can begin to purposely, intentionally cultivate more and more and more of that in your life. And that'll get us through, because joy and grief, joy and pain, they coexist. You know, we both know life is pain. It is complicated, and our children might suffer and our parents will die, and we are in that mix and there's no escaping it. We're going to radically accept it. And how can around that whole scenario can we be cultivating joy? Because that just keeps me in it and keeps me understanding, like, okay, this is a balance. It's never all one thing or another, but to have all these moments of joy percolating up, some that happened incidentally and some that I worked hard to create, keeps me going. So I would say to you, can you do the same thing for yourself in your context, in your communities, within your own family, within your own self? Where can you recognize those moments of joy and how can you continue to cultivate them?
Okay. I say yes.
Okay. I love that.
I'm curious if there's any particular method or way. Is it just paying attention and making a mental note, or is there some kind of way that you have found helpful to document? I think about photos, like sometimes going back and looking through your photo reel and seeing like, oh, that moment there that I captured.
I mean, I can tell you what I do. I think it may be different than what you do because it is based in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a visual artist and I think imagistically. So 100%, like you said, I love to document. I take photos of those moments. I write about those moments. I can and do create art about those moments, but often I just say it out loud too, right? Like I exclaim out loud, this is so nice, or I'm so happy. Or I will say directly to the people, I'm really happy to be here with you.
Yeah.
This is really fun. I love you, who, depending on who they are, like just a clear declaration of like, I am enjoying this moment and I'm grateful to be here with you. Whatever version of that it is, because I think that's part of it is like, I want to role model this sort of like goofy abandon of acknowledging joy, expressing care and affection for the people that I care about. But that's Tricia. That's what I look like when I'm doing that. It may be different for you. But yeah, I tap into my natural gifts, my natural ways of communicating, my natural ways of being, and I just sort of allow myself to say it.
That's great. Okay, so the invitational challenge, in summary, which I'm really grateful for, I love this, is to recognize joy in your life so that we can cultivate more.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say, based on what I've been learning from you today, that we can then seek out communities and spaces to bring more of that joy into our life or create those communities and spaces. And some of the ideas for how we might do that are tapping into the natural ways and talents that we have, each of us individually. But it could be capturing photos, it could be writing, it could be creating art, and it could be as simple as saying it out loud in the moment.
Yeah. For me, yes.
Good.
That's a good list. That's a good list. And surrounding yourself by people that are open to that want that for themselves as well, I think makes a huge difference.
Okay, well, I'm excited to pay attention to this. I'll report back.
Yeah. I just want to say the caveat for me, because I know neither of us are Pollyanna at all, because we've lived through a lot of really hard stuff. That's part of my campaign of slow hope too, right? It's not just about like,
Campaign of slow hope.
This is fun in this moment. It's like, this is the stuff that gives me strength to keep going. These glimmers of joy help me face the intensity of death or the despair of this moment in my mothering journey, or these dashed expectations of what I thought it would be, and it is not. It's like the fuel that allows me to keep going and believe with slow hope it's going to be okay over the long run, because there will be small incremental change, right? It's this modified version of optimism that really works for me because I get it. it's hard. It's
Yeah.
complicated. None of this is easy. But I've put in place these little ideas and concepts and practices that help me keep going.
So much goodness in this conversation. We end every podcast interview with acknowledgments. So it's an opportunity for each of us to identify anything we think we're leaving this conversation with more clarity and anything that we want to acknowledge one another. Before we move to that, though, I want to invite you to acknowledge your mom, because we did make it to the end of this conversation.
I did.
What aspects of all of these guideposts in your life that you've been reflecting on do you think were influenced by your own mother?
And instantly I have tears, which is fine.
We have this beautiful tissue box
We
here
do.
for that.
We do. I think that my mom loves so fiercely. And I feel like that is what I've inherited from her, is that it's the power of that fierce, savage mama bear love. She taught me how to just show up and be so fully committed and present for my kids and for my loved ones and more broadly for my community. But like, that's just so who she is, passionate and strong and fierce. And I think that strength, it's just in me. And if I had to name that strength, I would call it fierce love.
That's beautiful. And I saw a post of yours the other day where I think you were saying that when you're with your mom and holding her hand, you've been telling her a lot how much you love her. And what did you say are the things that she's so about?
This week I was caring for her and she's not speaking that much anymore. She'll answer a little bit. And so there were 3 ways she responded when I said, I love you, Mom, which I say like every couple minutes or whatever, right? I love you, Mama. One time she said, cool. And one time she said, well, that's good. And then another time she said, I love you too.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And I just loved the range of reactions, right? Cool reminded me of Han Solo when Princess Leia said, I love you. And he said, I know.
Classic moment.
So it's like, oh, Mom's still got, self-confidence. She deserves to be loved and she knows it. But yeah, the expressions of love are just so different now. They're very physical. It's a lot of touching, holding, curling up in the little hospital bed with her, playing The Sound of Music. And I was dancing around pretending to be one of the nuns the other day for my own amusement as much as hers. But yeah, like she just gave me this really strong spirit and this really strong, fierce love.
Well, that will lead me into my acknowledgement of you, because as you were naming this gift that your mom gave you about being able to fiercely love everyone around you and your community and your children, the one thing you didn't name that I thought of immediately as a gift that you have modeled for me is that you fiercely love yourself. And I really appreciate all of the ways that has manifested, how much you love yourself by getting what you need so that you can show up to be a better mother, how much you fiercely love yourself so that you can pursue your dreams and your impact, how much you fiercely love yourself so that you do seek out all of these opportunities to find joy and to move your body and do all these things that you know that you need, and how you fiercely love yourself by seeking out or creating the community that reminds you that you're not alone. You so beautifully demonstrate living an epic life in the fullest way. And I love how you name it and you celebrate it and you share it. Thank you for doing that today through this interview.
Thank you, Julie. That means so much to me. One of the sort of fundamental tenets of my life that I'm really clear about is that I come from love. My parents loved me a lot, really strongly, and it does allow me to sort of be bold and clear and strong and to help others do that. It's not even a question for me that I have value and that I'm a good person who's lovable and worth being loved. And that is such a gift that they gave to me. And I feel like in my mothering journey with my own kids, when I've been like, I can love away their woes and problems, and I realize now that I can't, but what I can do is love them with this fierceness that keeps them rooted in the belief and the understanding that they are worth loving. So I'm trying to pass that same concept on to my babies so that they understand that they have value, they are lovable, they are worth loving, so they can move into the world with that strength and that understanding of self. So to hear you say that to me is really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And I do want to say that you helped me reclaim that, because I was not as strong in my sense of self, and I was questioning my mothering and the value of what the choices that I'd made along the way. And I was a pretty broken version of myself when you and I first met. Even then, we met doing activism together, right? We were
You were still showing up.
Yeah, we were
joy.
We were founding the Autism Storytelling Project together. Like, we were doing real stuff, but I did not feel fully like myself, and I was not in my power. I definitely wasn't feeling joy. I'll say that really, really clearly. And working with you and talking with you and doing the exercises I did with you, like, really clearly, I remember retell my story, reclaim joy. It was all of these gestures and steps I was going to take to find my way back to myself. And working with you is what helped me frame that and figure out a direct path to being able to do that. And so what a gift you've given me, because that is not easy work. And I don't know how you came into my life at exactly the right time and had that whole day available when we could do the epic hike and do all that work together. But like, serendipity, man, that was exactly what I needed to reclaim what I had inside of me, but wasn't accessing very well at that time, right? So that gives me a lot of hope too, that like, it can be as bad as it can possibly be, and we can be our most demoralized and our most helpless and hopeless. And friends, people we care about, people with skill can help us reclaim what is inside of us. You did that. You did that for me.
Thank you, Tricia.
And I'm so grateful.
So glad we said yes to today. We were both having a feeling of like, there's so much going on. It's been a hard time.
I know.
We might not have the words to articulate anything.
I know.
But we decided to show up.
We'll see if
each
we
other.
articulated it. Who knows? But we showed up.
We did. I love showing up with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about how to join the Mother's Quest community, visit mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and help us to spread the word. I want to end with some words to help light the way on your quest. Seize the day, love your people, honor your gifts. Until next time.